Hi, this is the Gen Z Analyst. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we are coming to start a series on Excel Essentials. So what I'm basically coming to do is to look at some of the most important Excel features and functions that are useful for finance professionals, accountants, as well as data analysts, or any other person that may be using Excel for other purposes. Alright, so that is what I'm going to start in this particular video. And I want to promise you that this is not going to be one of your regular Excel videos where you just learn in a vacuum or something. This is going to be very practical. You're going to be demonstrating the functions or the features with practical scenarios that will help you to apply your skills in real world cases. Alright, so that's what we're going to do. Now, some of the functions we're going to cover in this first video is we are going to be looking at XLOOKUP. We're going to be looking at VLOOKUP. We're going to be looking at concatenate. Okay, concatenate function. We're going to look at other text functions. And then we also look at if functions. If functions. Okay, if and other related functions. So these are some of the few functions we're going to be looking at in this particular first video. And as I said, it's going to be very practical. As you can see, I have two scenarios here that we're going to use to demonstrate those skills. So I'm not going to actually talk plenty about them. We'll take the scenario, and the scenario itself will inform us which of the Excel functions to use. So let's get started. So before we start, if you have not subscribed to this particular channel, make sure you have subscribed to the channel because you'll be learning a lot about Excel. Already I have videos on financial modeling and finance and accounting related topics, and so you can find those videos out, alright, on my channel. So let's get started in this particular video. So we have a scenario here, scenario 1. Now scenario 1 has 3 data tables. Okay, the first data table contains a list of intents together with their departments and the hours they have worked in week 1. Data table 2 has the same intents list, and then we also have the same department names as well as the hours they have worked in week 2. Alright, now data table 3 has the same list of intents, but in this case we want to match, okay, we want to match the name of their department with the list of the intents, and then the number of hours they've worked in week 1. We are going to match the number of hours they worked with week 2, and then we are going to sum the number of weeks together. Okay, so that is what you have been asked to do. So how do we do that? The scenario will inform the functions you are supposed to use in Excel. Alright, so this is a typical scenario depicting or informing you to use lookup functions. Alright, so you are going to use lookup functions to be able to do this. So the simplest lookup function you can use is VLOOKUP. Right now, each of the lookup functions have their own advantages. Now, VLOOKUP is the first lookup function actually that came. Okay, so it helps you to actually look at a value at your left and return a corresponding value to your right. Alright, so it will look at a value to your left and return a corresponding value to your right. So let's look at what the VLOOKUP function does. So we are going to have equals. So we are going to pull the department name from data table 1 and data table 2. Now remember, data table 1 and data table 2 have the same departments. Alright, and they have the same list of intents. So we can use any of them for this particular purpose to pull the name of their departments. So let's get started. So we are going to have equals VLOOKUP. Okay, so when in Excel, when you type the name of a function, the function will be suggested and a brief description of the function will also pop up. So let's look at the description of VLOOKUP. So it's saying that it looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table and then returns a value in the same row for a column you specify. By default, the table must be sorted in an ascending order. Okay, so that is what we've been that is the description we have been given here. Now, that by default, they say the table must be sorted. So in order to use VLOOKUP very well, we need to format your range into tables. So we need to what you are having here, they are not called tables, they are called ranges in Excel. They are called range. Okay, so you need to format these ranges into tables, these two ranges into tables. So that's what we're going to do. Now there are two ways of formatting ranges into tables. Okay, the first one is to click inside the range you want to convert into table. Click inside any part of the table and hit Ctrl T. When you hit Ctrl T, this is going to select the entire table for you. Okay, but if you look at this has selected the name of the range, okay, which is data table 1, which we do not want, because this is actually the headers and not this. So I can cancel this and use the alternative. So the alternative is to select the entire range before hitting Ctrl T on your keyboard. So I'm going to select that. So I'll selecting here first. I'm going to press and hold Ctrl and Shift. Okay, and then I'll use my right arrow to copy to the left or to the right, and the down arrow and copy, and this will select the entire range for me. And then I can now hit Ctrl T to format my range into a table. So this has ticked that my table has headers. Yeah, and indeed my table has headers. So I'll just hit OK. Okay, so I've converted that into a table nicely. So as you convert it into a table, you can see that a new tab will be created called Table Design. So we don't need that for now. Let's come here and do the same thing for data table 2. So press and hold Ctrl Shift right arrow and then down arrow to select everything. Ctrl T on your keyboard and hit OK. So we have formatted everything into a table. Now we can go ahead and use our lookup function. So we'll come here and have our VLOOKUP. Okay, now forget about the sorting. Even if you don't sort, it will still work. So let's look at that. So you have VLOOKUP equals. So whenever you are going to use a function or a formula in Excel, you need to start with an equals. That informs Excel that whatever you are going to type is a function or a formula. Alright, so that is a basic thing you should have at the back of your mind. Alright, so we have VLOOKUP. So when you start typing, the function will be suggested for you. So when it is suggested in this manner and it is highlighted in blue, what you have to do is to hit tab on your keyboard. Just hit tab on your keyboard and that will select the value for you. Now the first argument, these are called arguments in Excel. Okay, the specific information you need to be able to use a function are called arguments. So the first argument here is saying lookup value. The lookup value is the value we are looking for. That is also inside the table we are going to pull our data from. So in this particular scenario, in data table 3, we have the intern names. And these intern names can also be found on data table 1 and data table 2. So the lookup value is the value we are looking for, which can also be found in the other tables. Alright, so we have this particular one here equals comma. So when you have comma there, the next argument is saying table array. So which table are we going to use, or in which of the tables are we going to find this particular lookup value? The table we are going to find is either table 1, data table 1, or data table 2. So I'll come here and select the entire table. So again, press and hold Ctrl Shift and then right arrow and then the down arrow to select everything there. Okay, so I'll hit comma, and then the next argument is saying column index number. So the column index number is the column of the value we want to return. Okay, in this particular scenario, we are returning the department name. So the department name is column 2 in data table 1. So this is column 1, which is the intern name. The column 2 is the department name. So I'll just come here and type 2. Okay, I'll hit comma again. And then the last argument is saying range lookup. The range lookup has two options. We have true, which is approximate match, which means that you are telling Excel to return any approximate, even if the name of the intern is not Marcus Wright, but it is Marcus something, then it should return the name of the department. Okay, that is what true does. And then false, which is the second one, is saying it should find an exact match. So if you find Marcus Wright in the data table 1, then return its corresponding department or his corresponding department. Okay, so we are going to select false. So again, you can just use tab to select that and close your parentheses and hit enter. So this is telling us department 2. So it means Marcus Wright's department is department 2. Okay, so I can just come here. As soon as my mouse pointer turns into that plus sign there, I'll just click or double click it, and this will copy the entire thing down for me to the very last one. Okay, so just like that, we have been able to pull the departments. Okay, now VLOOKUP has a limitation. The limitation of VLOOKUP is that it is only able to return a value at the left, found on the left most common column of a table, and return any value at the right. Okay, it cannot return a value from the right, or it cannot return a value on the left from the right. Okay, it can only return a value from the right, giving a value on the left. That is the only thing that it can do. And so we have a more robust function called the XLOOKUP. Now the XLOOKUP is the advanced form or the most robust form of VLOOKUP. Okay, so the XLOOKUP can look up values in any direction at all. Okay, so it is always recommended that you use the XLOOKUP instead of the VLOOKUP, even though VLOOKUP is still one of the most common functions you can find out there. Okay, so with that, let's cancel this and use XLOOKUP as well. So this is how the XLOOKUP also works. So we have equals XLOOKUP. Now, as I said, Excel will always give you a brief information about the function. So let's look at the information Excel is giving us here. So it is saying that XLOOKUP searches a range or an array for a match and returns the corresponding item from a second range or an array. So you could see that this is not specifying that it will look up for a value at the leftmost column or anything like that. It is just saying it will look for an array for a match and return the corresponding item. Okay, so that is how it works. It is very dynamic. All right, so it is always recommended that you use that particular function. Okay, so let's look at how the XLOOKUP function works. So again, I'll just hit tab on my keyboard and I will select it. The first argument is the lookup value, which is the same as VLOOKUP. So comma. The next one is lookup array. So the lookup array is where we found our lookup value. This is the lookup array. So I'll hit comma. And then the next argument is saying return array. So what are we going to return? We're going to be returning the departments. Okay, I'll hit comma there as well. And then the next argument is saying if not found. If not found. So if not found, just return 0. Okay. And then the next argument is saying match mode. So we are going to use what? Exact match. So the exact match is 0. So you can just write 0 there, which is exact match. And then we can close the parentheses and hit enter. So this is department 2. I can again double click and this will copy the entire thing down there for me. So this is how the XLOOKUP also works. Now, when you look at the values for VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP, they return the same thing. All right, but the XLOOKUP is more dynamic, and so it's good to master this particular skill in addition to the VLOOKUP. All right, so that is how this is done. Okay, now we want to return that of the hours worked for week 1 as well as week 2. So we are going to do the same thing for hours worked as well as the hours worked as well. So let's look at how we're going to do that. So for the hours worked, I can use VLOOKUP for one and XLOOKUP for the other. So let's look at VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP. What is the lookup value? We are looking at this. Okay. Then the lookup table is table data table 1. I'll select everything there, comma. The next argument is saying column index. So the column index here is column index 3. I'll hit comma and then I'll make it false. Close my parentheses and hit enter. So that is 46 there. Again, I'll just double click the plus sign there, and this will copy it down for me. And then when it comes here, I'll use XLOOKUP for week 2. So XLOOKUP, and the first argument is lookup value. So I'll come here, select that, and then we have lookup array. So the lookup array is here, comma. The next argument is return array. So return this particular range for me, or column. And then value if not found, you can just put 0 there and make it exact match by selecting 0. And then I can close my parentheses and hit enter. So that is giving me that. I can hit this. And then the next column is saying sum of the hours. So I'll just have here alt equals to sum those two together for me. So that's a shortcut key for sum. Alt equals. That will auto sum the values for you. And then I can double click here to do that. So this is how we can fill out information using lookup functions. Precisely VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP functions. Okay, so this is how you can be able to do that. Very practical, very simple, and very dynamic. Okay, so that is that for our lookup video. So you can rewatch these videos again to be able to familiarize yourself with those things. Now, when we type Excel functions, you could see that some of the arguments were in brackets. So for instance, when you look at the VLOOKUP function, you could see that we have range lookup. Now this range lookup is optional because it's in brackets. Whenever an Excel argument is in bracket, it is optional, which means that even if you don't satisfy that argument, the function will still work. But where the arguments are left like this, separated with commas, then it means that they are mandatory arguments that you need to fill in for the function to work. All right, so take note of that. Okay, so let's look at scenario 2, the second scenario here. Now, in the second scenario, we have information relating to the sales, okay, to some of our clients. So we have client first name, we have the client's last name, we have the client's ID, which is in the format ID prefix, which is 2 texts, and ID suffix, which is the numbers, and the two are separated by dash. All right, we have order date, delivery date, and then days until delivery. So we have some information to complete the table. So we are to look out for the delivery category. Okay, delivery category, which I'm going to describe in a moment. You have to look for the client full name. Okay, pull the client full name here. So here we have the first name and the last name. You have to pull their full names here. And then we need only the prefix of their IDs and the suffix of their IDs in the last column as well. So that is what you are going to do in this particular scenario. So again, as I said, the scenario will inform the kind of functions to use. Okay, now when it comes to the delivery category, we are saying that the delivery category should be categorized as normal if the days until delivery, so the days until delivery, are greater than or equal to 10 days. Okay, that's the first category. It should be normal if the days until delivery are greater than or equal to 10 days. They should be categorized as express. That's number 2. They should be categorized as express if the days until delivery are greater than or equal to 5 but less than 10. And then thirdly, it should be categorized as priority if days until delivery are less than 5 days. So we have 3 categories. It should be a normal category if the delivery days are equal to or greater than 10. They should be categorized as express if the days until delivery are equal to or greater than 5 but less than 10. And it should be categorized as priority if the days until delivery are less than 5 days. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. Now, to be able to do this, we can use what we call the if functions. The if function. So the if function will help us to know, to be able to make these distinctions between normal, express, and priority based on the days until delivery. So let's get started. Now, the if functions, we are going to be using 2. The first one I'm going to use is the normal if function, which are going to join together. So we're going to be having an if function within another if function. And then we are also going to be using the ifs function. The ifs function is the modified version of the joint if function. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate that for you to see. So the if function is this. So if. So the first argument, okay, so let's look at what the if function does first. So you are saying that it checks whether a condition is met and returns one value if true and another value if false. Okay, so we have been given conditions in this scenario, so that's why we are using the if function. So let's look at the if function. The first argument for the if function is logical test. So the logical test is here, we are saying that if the days until delivery is greater than 10, okay, is greater than or equal to 10, then value if true, that's the second argument, value if true. So we are saying that if this is the case, if the days until delivery are greater than or equal to 10, then categorize this as normal. As normal delivery. Okay. Then we are going to have another if function. We're going to be having another if function. Now this if function is going to take care of the second argument. So the second argument we are saying is that if the days until delivery, okay, is greater than or equal to 5, then the value if true should be express. Okay, and then comma. So any other value should be categorized as priority. So this is how you put the if function. We are going to close the bracket for the first if function and close the bracket for the second if function and hit enter. Okay, now let's go to the formula again. So we've been given 3 conditions based on the days until delivery. And we are saying that if the days until delivery is greater than or equal to 10 days, then the delivery should be categorized as normal delivery. Okay, then if the delivery, the days until delivery is greater than or equal to 5 days, then that delivery should be categorized as express delivery. Any other days until delivery left should be categorized as priority. So that's exactly what we have done. So I'll hit enter and then I'll click here, come here. If my mouse pointer turns to the plus there, I'll just double click and this will copy the formula down for me. Okay, so this is how we do that. Now let's insert another yeah, and then I can copy this here and paste here. So let me copy this and paste here, and then I can also use the ifs function. Okay, so this is ifs. Now ifs is if plus x, ifs function. So the ifs function, this is what it does. It checks whether one or more conditions are met and returns a value corresponding to the first true condition. So the ifs function, as I said, is a modified version of the joint if functions that we used previously. So let's look at how that is very simple. So this is what it's going to do. We are going to be having logical test. So the logical test 1, logical value if true 1. We have logical test 2, value if true 2, like that. So the first logical test is saying that if the days until delivery is greater than or equal to 10, then the value if true 1 should be normal. Okay. Then logical test 2 is saying that if the days until delivery is, so this one you don't put any other if again. Okay, that is how simple it is. So if the days until delivery is greater than or equal to 5, value if true should be express. Should be express. Okay. And then the logical test 3 is saying that if the days until delivery is less than 5, okay, the value if true should be categorized as priority. So I'll close my quotes, close the ifs function, and hit enter. So this is normal, and then I can copy this down. Okay, so let's look at why it is returning NA there. So we are saying that if the delivery function, the days until delivery is greater than or equal to 10, it should be normal. That is good. If the delivery days is greater than or equal to 5, it should be categorized as express. If the delivery days is less than, so this should be less than 5, then it should be categorized as priority. So let's copy that again, and we see that it returns the same thing. Alright, so we can use the ifs function instead of the conjoined or using ifs, if in if function, okay, which can be much complicated, or it can look complicated. Okay, so you can just use the ifs function and then you are good to go. Alright, so that is that. Now let's look at some text functions as well. Okay, now we've been given the client first name and the last name, and we've been told to what pull their full names here. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are just going to be having we are going to use what we call the concatenate function or concat function to be able to you do this. Okay, so you are going to be having equals concat. So CONCAT. So that is the function here. Okay, so I'll use my tab to select that. And the text I'm going to select is this, the first name, comma, and then I'm going to have a space between the names. Okay, a space between the first name and the last name. So I'm going to have open quote here, leave a space, close my quote, and bring comma. And then the second text or the third text will now come as the last name there. I'll close my parentheses and hit enter. So as you can see, this is William Russell. So William Russell comes, and then I can copy this down there. So as you can see, this has pulled their full names for me, just like that. Okay, now let's come to the ID prefix and the suffix. So with the prefix, we can use several functions to do this. We can use the text split function, we can use the left function, we can use the right function. Okay, so for the prefix, so for starters, let's use the text split function. I don't know if all versions of Excel has this particular function, so I'll use that first, and then I'll look at the left and then the right as well. So let's look at the text split function. So that this is what it does. The text split function splits text into rows or columns using delimiters. So it will split it using delimiters. Delimiters are those symbols that separate two different texts. Okay, so as you can see, the delimiters here is the dash. So I'm going to be having the first argument, which is the text. So I'll have my text here. This is the text. Sorry, this is the text here. I'll have my comma, and then we have the column delimiter. So what is going to separate the text into two different columns? That is the dash. So I'm going to put this in quotes. So dash there in quotes. Okay. And then the other arguments are brackets, so they're not needed. So I can just close my parentheses and hit enter. And as you can see, it has separated the two for me. Now this is actually as simple as that. So I can just select the two and hit this, double click this. Okay, so I can just drag these down. All I have to do is to drag them down to the last one. Okay, so as simple as that. Okay, so that's how you can use the text split. So let's look at how it works again. So with the text split, you select your text and then bring out the delimiter. The delimiter in this case is the dash. And as I said, if you are inputting anything in an Excel function, which is not a number or which is not a figure, you need to put it into quote for Excel to recognize that this is not a numerical figure. Okay, so just put it there and hit enter, and that is it. Okay, so that is how you can do that. Then let's come here and see how the left and the right functions can also work. So I can also use, for the prefix, I can use the left function to pull this data. For the suffix, I can use the right function. So let's look at how the left will work. So we have left equals left, and I'll have this, and the number of characters I want to pull is 2. So I'll have comma, the number of characters I want to pull is 2. So I'll just hit close my parentheses and hit enter, and that will pull the first 2 letters for me. Then for right, so let me delete this and put right there. So for right, it is the opposite of left function. So I have my text here, and what I want it to do is to pull the first 4 characters for me. The first 4 characters, because the numbers are 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'll close my parentheses and hit enter, and that will pull it for me. So that is how you can use the left and the right functions as well to do that. Okay, so we have come to the end of this particular video. I hope you have learned a lot in this particular video. Make sure you have subscribed to the channel, and don't forget to like the video and share with others so they can also benefit. I'll see you in my next videos where we are going to be looking at conditional formatting and all of that. So stay tuned to the channel, and I'll see you in my next videos.